This is what Democrats are fighting to save. $20 million for Iraqi Sesame Street, $2 million for Moroccan pottery classes, $11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash, $27 million to give gift bags to illegals before we deport them, millions to help Afghanis grow crops instead of opium. That program was such a success that opium production doubled. We also gave Afghanistan $300 million to build diesel fuel power plants, but they couldn't use them because diesel was too expensive. $200 million on a dam that was too unsafe to ever be used. We could have used that dam in California. $250 million on a road that was never used. We literally built a road to nowhere. Oh, and we gave Syrians $9 million for humanitarian aid, but someone messed up and it went to Al-Qaeda. $1 million for bat research in Wuhan. That equates to $1 million for each dead American. USAID was funding Fashion Week in Paris. France isn't even paying its NATO dues, and we're paying for their Fashion Week. USAID's a $40 billion deep state social justice slush fund.
The DOGE team finds an insane amount of corruption led by former President Joe Biden. Former President Barack Obama's presidential library has its lease terminated. And Democrats face even more challenges as Senator John Fetterman drops a bomb on the party. Now, if you guys appreciate the daily updates, please take a second and hit the like button for the video and subscribe to the channel. I've got that, all of that, and more. So let's go ahead and get down to business with the amazing work that Elon Musk and DOGE is doing right now. USAID has encountered a lot of criticism as of late, with DOGE exposing them for their wasteful spending. But all of that pales in comparison to what former President Joe Biden did. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys remember when Joe bragged about getting rid of a prosecutor who was investigating his son Hunter Biden in Ukraine. Well, if you don't remember that, check this out.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Should taxpayer money be wasted on corrupt government spending, or is it time to clean house? Type defund the swamp if you think it's time to put an end to this insanity, or business as usual if you believe nothing's ever going to change. I want to see where you guys stand on this. Now, it is the clear sign of corruption that should have clued everyone in as to just how the former president operates and how he used our taxpayer money as a means to stop investigations into Hunter Biden. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene called for criminal referrals connected to this. Max Primorak, former USAID official and Heritage Foundation senior research fellow, he called Biden's actions as corruption.
And this committee, based on this hearing and witness testimonies, will consider recommending investigations and criminal referrals. When Joe Biden was president, his son Hunter was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma. The prosecutor general of Ukraine at the time, Viktor Shokin, was investigating Burisma for corruption. Biden threatened, and it's on video, to withhold $1 billion of USAID grant to Ukraine if Shokin wasn't fired. Mr. Primorak, is USAID supposed to be used as leverage by a president to protect his son?
No, we call that corruption.
It's kind of hard to argue with that logic. Using taxpayer money to avoid being investigated is a clear show of corruption. And as you guys saw, there's clear evidence of him saying this outright. Greene also asked Primorak what percentage of USAID funding may have been provided to bad actors. or to efforts that don't necessarily have the best interests of the people in mind. Primerac said that the House Foreign Affairs Committee found that USAID was paying out over 50% to overhead charges. The Inspector General of USAID called out the agency for not knowing the overhead charges that were being handed out to these actors. The disbursement went up to around $142 billion. Now, just think about that number for a second, guys, and how that could have helped countless Americans here at home. I also have to talk about the sick act that they've been doing when it comes to cats and dogs, with federal workers flying overseas buying cat and dog meat, only to then bring the meat back home to feed it to cats and dogs. All of this is on taxpayer dollars, guys. I can't even comprehend why they would even think to do something like this. And all of these revelations have inspired Democrats to just keep on rallying. That's because they know for a fact that the funding will soon be cut.
Big balls, looking at your balance sheet isn't Gettysburg. Are Democrats going to secede from the Union again? We already have rebels yelling.
More funding, not less. End research funding theft. More funding, not less.
Hey, hey, RFK, hands off the FTA. Hey, hey, RFK, we remember JFK. Fascism is a virus too, and the people who are out here fighting in sub-freezing temperatures, they are the antibodies. We are the antibodies. And my friends, a rally a day keeps the fascists away.
But Elon Musk's work is hardly done, with him reporting to Republicans in a closed-door meeting where he revealed just how much DOGE has saved each taxpayer as of late. Watch.
The CEO gathered with dozens of GOP leaders for back-to-back meetings at the Capitol on Wednesday, where he shared updates on the progress of the Department of Government Efficiency, also known by DOGE. You know that by now. Musk telling the roughly 40 senators that DOGE's efforts are saving about $4 million per day. He says they've already cut $105 billion in wasteful spending. That breaks down to over $650 per taxpayer. The CEO telling lawmakers there's more to come.
Mr. Musk, what was your message in there to House Republicans? What was your message in there, Mr. Musk?
There's a lot of opportunity to improve expenditures in the government, and then we're making good progress in that regard.
This all comes after Democrat lawmakers joined protesters opposing the spending cuts, while House Speaker Mike Johnson says DOGE is making much-needed progress.
This extraordinary work that Elon Musk is doing with DOGE, that he's explaining to our House Republicans tonight, is transformative. It's really revolutionary in the way that we'll do budgeting. We'll limit the size and scope of the federal government, and we'll be much more accountable to taxpayers in this country, and that is long overdue.
And this is where Democrats are losing, because they're making it obvious that these cuts are not helping them, that they're all in when it comes to wasteful spending. In fact, you heard them rallying about even more spending rather than cuts. Now, speaking of which, I want to now talk about former President Barack Obama. This is a guy whose net worth is around $70 million, which is an insane amount given that they were not always that rich. Now, as far as we know, the Obamas hit millionaire status around 20 years ago, which skyrocketed right as he started his second term as president, which in and of itself is questionable, although it is defended by his book deals, presidential salary, pension, and Netflix deals. But $70 million? Seriously? And just look at their $18 million Hawaii hideout. I wouldn't be shocked if he's next door neighbors with Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I'm not really sure if Michelle's there given the whole divorce rumors or not, but one thing is certain, the Obamas are loaded. Although DOGE did give them some really bad news lately, with the lease of Obama's presidential library site's lease being terminated. Now, the termination of their lease is not expected to impact their operations, especially since it's expected that they're moving to a new location. Although DOGE cutting their lease prevents them from using more taxpayer money. As reported by the Chicago Tribune, the annual rent for this spot is valued at $1.4 million. And this is separate from the 9.3-acre, $830 million Obama Presidential Center in the city's south side. That one is set to open by next year. Now, Elon Musk is aiming to close about half of the government's office space across the country, although the Associated Press reports that around 40% of the almost 2,300 announced government contract terminations won't lead to any savings. This is because the funds have mostly been spent or are already committed. Now, when it comes to the former president's presidential library, I'm expecting that it's not going to open anytime soon, especially with all the challenges that they faced throughout the years. If you've seen photos of this thing, you would think that it's been up for decades given the cracks that you see in its facade. And just to add to the embarrassment of the Democratic Party, let's now talk about Senator John Fetterman. So Fetterman, He called out his own party for their disrespectful behavior during President Trump's address to Congress. Watch.
I don't know why we can't fully celebrate. I mean, I have a 13-year-old myself. And I mean, thank God she's never had cancer, but I think that's something we could all celebrate that. And I think it was like a touching moment. And like I said, that's part of the best of the American experience.
Now, I'm guessing that the Democratic Party is going to try and get rid of John Fetterman as soon as they can, especially since he's talking some common sense into his own party. They don't like common sense. Now, I want to redirect you guys to a recent live stream I did where I talked about the many losses that Democrats are facing right now. And this one might just be the worst of them all. So anyway, make sure to check that video out next. As always, appreciate y'all hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time.